everyone. Happy Monday to you. Welcome to the Scoreboard. 844 Studio 4 is the phone number. That's 844-788-3464. Oh, man, it was a weekend. It was a weekend. We had some Game 7s in basketball. We have a Game 7 tonight in the NHL as well. The NASCAR Cup Series had their All-Star Race festivities, and although it rained to begin the weekend, it ended with some fire, even some fists being thrown. I don't know what I have to say about that. We'll talk about the Stenhouse-Busch feud a little bit later on in the show. We'll also talk about the All-Star race in general because it was All-Star weekend. The Cup Series having their display of their best drivers at North Wilkesboro Speedway, one of the most famous NASCAR tracks out there. We also have high school playoffs going on. Yes, high school sports are in the middle of their playoff season. We have some state champions who were crowned over the weekend, that being in lacrosse. We also had in the world of high school sports, the women's lacrosse was going on as well. Not only that, but more second round, third round action from the baseball scene, and we are into the third round of women's soccer. We'll talk about that as well as we move through the playoffs here. A lot of teams still have a chance to get that state championship. Also, over the weekend, the NBA, like I said, we had some good games there. Have you been keeping up with Caitlin Clark? Hasn't been doing all that well, the start of her WNBA career. Well, I didn't expect her to all of a sudden become the best WNBA player of all time. I am a little surprised at the struggle. And Scottie Scheffler, hey, we went into the weekend not really knowing what was going on with that, with his actual arrest, and he obviously made bail, but he was arrested, booked, photo, probably a fingerprint, mugshot. You can find the mugshot. Oh man, it's so funny seeing that. The jokes and the memes that come along with the Scottie Scheffler mugshot, side by sides to the Tiger Woods one, obviously, is something that you're going to be seeing. So we'll talk a little bit about that because it was the PGA Championship. By the way, before we get into anything about this Scottie Scheffler situation, the arraignment is delayed until June 3rd. So if you're keeping up with what's going on with Scottie Scheffler and his arrest, I mean, this is serious. He could get time for this, but I have a feeling that this is going to get thrown out. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. But we're going to get to this high school sports scene, the lacrosse championships over the weekend. They were played out in Durham. Lake Norman Charter, congratulations to you. Lake Norman Charter has gone back to back to back. That is three-peat in the lacrosse 1, 2, and 3A bracket. So congratulations to Lake Norman Charter as they were able to beat Orange High School. And in the 4A bracket, it was a really good game in the 4A bracket. Man, I'll tell you what, I feel bad for Lake Norman High School. Get eliminated from the baseball playoffs in a walk-off grand slam, bottom of the 7th, 2 outs, full count. I mean, the whole 9 yards, the whole thing. And now you go to the state championship in lacrosse. You play Green Level High School. Now, Lake Norman was down going into the fourth quarter of that game. They were able to get it tied, outscoring Green Level 5-2 in that fourth quarter of the game. But in overtime, Green Level High School comes out with the victory. Lake Norman, unfortunately, they were not the state champions. It was Green Level High School and Green Level High School out of Cary, North Carolina, over on the other side of the state. So with that, the lacrosse season ends. Congratulations to Lake Norman Charter and Lake Norman High School. It was a good run, and good job to all of those schools that were playing, because I'll tell you what, not only were those two teams good, but there were a lot of highly ranked national teams in the lacrosse world in this area right here in our listening area. So congratulations to all those schools that had a great year. Looking forward to covering it again next year, but we got to wait. We got to wait a little bit for this one to roll back around. Got a whole year in front of us, but we still have more playoffs going on. Baseball is not quite at the end of their season. We're getting close. We have made it to the regionals in high school baseball playoffs. 1A, 2A, 3A, and 4A all have their matchups set for you. They're coming up later on this week. Some games tomorrow. So let's start the preview of those games. In the 1A, Mount Airy High School moves on as the 1 seed. They beat Cherryville 4-2 in their game, 4th round game. And they'll be playing Uwharrie Charter, who unfortunately took down Christ the King. Well, I guess fortunately for them, unfortunately for Christ the King High School down in Huntersville within our listening area. Christ the King High School was eliminated in extra innings. 4-3 was the final in that game. Uwharrie Charter got that game, the walk-off run in the bottom of the 8th inning. So Mount Airy will be taking on Uwharrie Charter in the 1A game. That's going to be tomorrow. 2A, you have another 1 seed going all the way, that being Burns High School, as they defeated North Stanley, the 5 seed. 5-2 was the final score in that one. And in your other game to get to the regionals here, Burns High School's opponent is going to be East Rutherford High School. They beat the 3 seed Moorhead 7-8. The final score in that one, East Rutherford coming away, barely squeaking by with the win on that one. So Burns High School and East Rutherford, those two schools will go against each other tomorrow at 7 o'clock. We got more baseball to talk about. We also have women's soccer to talk about as well. We had some games over the weekend and some games coming up. So don't go anywhere. There's still a lot that you need to know in the local high school sports. You're listening to The Scoreboard. 844 Studio 4 is the phone number. We'll be back right after this. we are back here on the scoreboard. 844 Studio 4 is your phone number. Chatting about high school baseball playoffs. As we get into the regionals, that means state championships are coming up this weekend, guys. I mean, it's right here. The high school sports scene is basically done for the year. I mean, we still have a few more championships to hand out, but before you know it, we're going to be talking football. And I know that's crazy to a lot of you because I feel like we just started talking about baseball and lacrosse and women's soccer. But no, it's almost done already. So we're going to move on after that. It's crazy. The sports world moves so fast. And we're going to continue talking about those high school playoffs because we have more regional matchups to go over, especially when it comes to 3A baseball. We have some upsets in here. Out of the 2-1 seeds in the 3A, only one of them made it, and that being East Rowan. They took down number 21 Oak Grove, who was on a pretty nice run there, especially after they beat number 13 Lake Norman. But Oak Grove's magical run came to an end as they fell 12-2 to East Rowan. That put East Rowan in the regionals. And as far as their opponent, they're going to be taking on a 10 seed. Yeah, a 10 seed, Tuscola High School out of Waynesville, North Carolina. Over even farther west, past Asheville, from what I found out. So those two schools playing tomorrow at 7 p.m., number 1, East Rowan, and number 10, Tuscola High School. By the way, in the East, you have number 4, Terry Sanford, taking on number 14, South Central High School. So that's a couple of schools that had to beat some better opponents in order to get to the regionals. So it's going to be a good 3A champion. Man, I'd love nothing more than to have 14 South Central playing number 10, Tuscola High School. Whoo, boy, that'd be fun. And in the 4A, there are actually a couple of surprises there as well. That being number 14, Charlotte Catholic High School. Now, they beat Cox Mill, who was the 6th seed, 5-0 earlier last week. And then on Friday, they were able to beat Alexander Central 4-3. That was a matchup between a 14 and a 26 seed. Now, this game was a close one. Charlotte Catholic came into the top of the 7th inning with a 3-1 lead. Alexander Central tied the game up in the top of the 7th, made it 3-3. But then in the bottom of the 7th, Charlotte Catholic walked it off, getting the win 4-3. Their opponent is going to be the number 1 seed in the 4A, TC Robertson, as they beat West Forsyth 8-5. TC Robertson, they are out of Asheville and ranked as the number 2 team in the state of North Carolina. So Charlotte Catholic has their work cut out for them if they want to go on to that state championship game. And in the women's brackets for soccer, yes, we still have women's soccer championships going on. 3rd round action later on this week. They will be tomorrow. But as far as the 2nd round goes, let's go over some of those games. In the 1A division, you have not many schools in our listening area doing good and none really moving on. Christ the King High School, the 12 seed, was able to beat Swain County 5-0. That put them by into the 3rd round. They're ranked 30th in the state, which is pretty good, but they're 12 seed in their bracket. Now, they'll be taking on number 4, Bishop McGuinness. These games later on today and tomorrow, they're kind of scattered a little bit, but most of them will be going on today. So today, right after this show, 6 o'clock, Christ the King High School is on the road visiting Bishop McGuinness. In the 2A bracket, the number 1 seed Pine Lake beat Newton Conover. They're taking on Bandy's High School later on tonight, 6:30 start time on this one, as Bandy's High School was able to beat West Stanley 4-3 in their game. Now, this is a home playoff game for Pine Lake, so it will be in Mooresville if you have any interest in that. Their facility is right off like exit 33 or so Go watch some women's soccer playoffs. Also, in the 2A, you have a 23 seed in the second round as Owen High School beat East Gaston 2-1. Now they're going to take on number 2 Hendersonville, but man, that is some win right there for East Gaston High School. The 3A bracket, the 1 seed Hebritton High School is moving on. They take on Atkins. Hickory High School got a shutout win, a clean sheet, if you will, against Ashboro. 7-0 was the final score in that one. Their opponent is going to be South Point. They are the 4 seed. Lake Norman Charter continuing their good run of spring sports with a third round appearance against West Henderson in the 3A Women's Soccer Championship. That game also scheduled for tonight. West Henderson is the higher seed, so unfortunately for Lake Norman Charter, they are on the road in this one. And in that 4A bracket, Watauga High School still the 1 seed, but Mooresville is going to be their opponent this week. 6 o'clock tonight, Watauga High School hosting Mooresville. Mooresville snuck by Providence 1-0 to get to this third round matchup. So that one later on tonight. Also, you have the 2 seed Huff High School playing number 26 Myers Park. A great win for Myers Park against Weddington. That was a 26 upsetting a 10 last week. So a lot of high school sports still going on. We have playoffs going on all this week, next week as well. I believe next week is the last week, if I check my calendar correctly here, when we're going to have the women's soccer wrap up. We're going to have baseball wrapping up here soon as well. And as always, we're going to continue to let you know who is winning these state championships, because it's always nice to shout out those local high schools, especially if they're in our listening area. Hey, Lake Norman Charter, congrats on that lacrosse championship. I'm sure that is awesome. Let's go ahead and turn the page here and get into the NASCAR Cup Series. So yesterday in the All-Star race, well, before we get to the story, to the only story of the All-Star race, might I add, I want to talk about the race. Why are we having an All-Star race at a short track still? We know that these cars don't drive great at a short track. They're good at the intermediate tracks. I mean, they produce at least a good race. Now, maybe it's not the kind of racing I think that we should be seeing, but they still produce a good race at the intermediate tracks. Why, when you finally get a good intermediate package, do you take the race away from where they would run well? North Wilkesboro is a short track, and I know they tried to give it the banking is higher, the higher up you run, and they tried to keep all the characteristics, and they did a good job. That bump on the low side coming out of turn 4 was treacherous all night long. And we actually saw a few incidents because of that bump in turn 4. But Joey Logano absolutely dominated this event. Dominated it. Started first, finished first, led 199 laps. That was a very entertaining all-star race. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. And I get it. I mean, there was things that happened. Kyle Larson, you know, the story with him and helicoptering into North Wilkesboro and going immediately into the pre-race show, talking to the guys there. And, you know, he looked good. He drove the car up to a P4 finish. Now, let's talk about how he got there. He drove a good race, passed guys throughout the race, but he was one of the drivers that came in on that final stop on the final caution of the race and decided, hey, we're going to put scuff tires on. Now, I think they said there was only a lap or two on those tires, and you could tell it was different. I mean, he was fast when they initially put those scuff tires on, drove himself all the way up to third, started battling Denny Hamlin for the second position, and then I think he just used up the tire and started fading. He eventually gets passed by Chris Buescher, leading to the fourth place finish. You also had a few accidents in there as well, some cautions. You know, the soft tire versus the prime tire wasn't as significant as we thought it would be. You saw Bubba Wallace was able to fight Joey Logano pretty well at the end of the first 100 laps to stay on the lead lap, and that was with the longer lasting tires, as they called it, a little bit harder compound. But it really didn't make that much of a difference. If you weren't on those soft tires, you were not in contention. I'm not done talking about the All-Star race because we have the big story to talk about with not Denny Hamlin. Why did I think of Denny Hamlin? Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and Kyle Busch. Man, there's some funny stuff coming from this one. We'll talk about that on the other side of the break. But don't go anywhere. You're not going to want to miss this. You're listening to the Scoreboard. 844 Studio 4 is the phone number. We'll be back right after this. All right, everyone, we are back here on the scoreboard. 844-788-3464 is the phone number. Anything you'd like to chat about, we're here for you. And I want to hear from you. We're talking All-Star race, okay? And NASCAR has to be kind of happy right now that there was an incident during the All-Star race. Well, it wasn't even during the All-Star race. Okay, here's what happened. Let's go through this step by step. The green flag flies on Sunday night for the All-Star race. Kyle Busch washes up the racetrack just a little bit. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and this is like mid-pack. This isn't for the lead or anything. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. puts his car in there, makes it 3 wide. Kyle Busch hits the wall. Feels like he got run up into the wall by Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Couple of corners later, entering turn 1, Kyle Busch into the back bumper of Stenhouse, and around he goes head on into the fence, ending his day early. Kyle Busch unscathed in the incident. In the press release, in the press conference, in the interview afterwards for Stenhouse, he said, well, I can't really leave anywhere, so I guess I'll stick around and I'll handle it after the race. And then he made some, I guess he kind of said, hey, in not so many words, I'm going to fight him. Waited around the entire race. In the video of Stenhouse standing with his arm like and leaning up against something, staring down Kyle Busch as he walks up to him, is utterly hilarious. So Kyle Busch and Stenhouse, they walk up to each other. They start talking. They disagree. Ricky Stenhouse Jr. throws the right hook, connects with Kyle Busch, and it's on from there. Number one, it was the right hook could use some work, Stenhouse. Let's get you into the arena a little bit and start working on the bag a little. Could use some work on that right hook. Secondly, the crews got in it the way they always do. And Kyle Busch's crew member, I don't know who it was, but he was up there shoving people back big time. And it was great. It was great. And you hear the commentary of them afterwards. They're yelling at each other while being held back. And Kyle Busch says, I'm just as bad as you. Oh, Kyle's had a really bad year, so he has the ability to say that, I guess. But no, Kyle Busch is not as bad as Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Maybe he's performing poorly right now, and the results aren't there. But if you told me, hey, which driver do you want, Stenhouse or Busch? It's an easy decision for me. I'm going with Busch 10 times out of 10. So they fight, and it gets broken up, and this is during the interview for Logano, like right after he wins the race. And they fight, they break it up. Now, apparently, NASCAR is thinking of handing out some suspensions. Stenhouse said he'll wreck Busch in the 600. This is the story. This is the story. Ricky Stenhouse and Kyle Busch. If I ask you 5 years from now, hey, remember when Kyle Busch and Ricky Stenhouse fought in the All-Star race? Who won that All-Star race? I don't think you're going to remember because it was not a memorable race. It really wasn't. And I want it to be memorable. I like North Wilkesboro. The track is beautiful. What they were able to do over there and bring that place back to life and keep the characteristics in the racetrack, like, it deserves to have good racing. And unfortunately, I just don't think that's what we saw on Sunday. I'm watching the video again of Stenhouse and Busch go at it. Man, if you're on social media at all, if you're on X, Twitter, or X, check out Bob Pockrass because he was filming this thing. He was right there, and he must have gotten hit with something because you can see his phone get flipped around so that he is in frame. And Bob Pockrass's face while this is going on was absolutely priceless. To the point where he then took the frame of him making one of the weirdest faces you can make and has now made it his profile picture. Go check it out. Bob Pockrass on Twitter. Absolutely hilarious. NASCAR shouldn't do anything about this. You know, whatever happened to boys have at it? When did they announce that wasn't the rule anymore? Just let them fight. You know, actually, I've been watching too many of the NHL playoff games. Halfway through the race, we should have a red flag, mandatory red flag. If we're going to do stages, let's get rid of the stages. Let's just do a mandatory halfway stop. And if you have a problem with another driver, put on some gloves, hit each other a few times, get back in the race car. I think that would make NASCAR a lot better. But I don't think this is anything. I mean, first of all, Stenhouse, how mad did you have to be to sit around for 2 hours and still want to punch Kyle Busch in the face? That's what I want to know. Like, you sat there for 2 hours. You didn't have any time to reflect. Like, maybe you shouldn't punch him in the face. I mean, we're all glad you did. It's giving us plenty to talk about today. What, did Stenhouse think he was going to win the All-Star race? I mean, I get it. It's lap 2 when you got taken out. It is what it is, I guess. So from the All-Star race, we head to the Coca-Cola 600 this weekend. Race time for the Cup Series, 6 p.m. You can catch that race beginning at 5 p.m. right here on WSIC. Also on Sunday, there is the Indianapolis 500. And one of the NASCAR Cup Series drivers is going to be competing in the Indy 500. Kyle Larson. Not only will he be competing in that race, but he put in a stellar qualifying effort. Kyle Larson is going to be starting the Indianapolis 500 5th. You heard me correctly. The Cup champion, never driven an Indy car, starting Indianapolis 500 in P5. I am probably going to be holding my breath that entire race. I usually am anyway. But man, I'll tell you what. If he's able to put together a couple of top 10 finishes, now I think not Kyle. I think Tony Stewart had the best results in the double, as they call it, where you run both the Indy 500 and the Coke 600 in the same day. That's 1,100 miles. I think he finished 3rd in Indy and 6th at Charlotte, or flip-flop that. I don't have it right in front of me, and I can't remember it off the top of my head. But I know that Tony Stewart had the best result. Most recently, Kurt Busch attempted the double. I was at that 2014 Coke 600 race when they helicoptered him into the front stretch, landed him on the grass. Everybody gave him an ovation. It was really nice to see. You got to watch the Indy 500 on the big screen there. So it's pretty cool stuff. You gotta check out the Coke 600 at some point. By the way, early weather report for Sunday in Speedway, Indiana, which is where Indianapolis Motor Speedway is located. Not the best. 60% chance of precipitation throughout the day. I don't know what that means for Kyle Larson. I would assume that if it gets delayed even slightly, he would immediately have to leave and head to North Carolina for the Coke 600. But, maybe there's a contingency plan there too, where, I don't know, Kevin Harvick starts the race car. Although, we could talk about this a little bit more after the break. The driver who starts the race is who ends up getting the points credit. So if Kevin Harvick started, Kyle Larson won, the win would get credited to the 5-car and owner's points, but it would go to Kevin Harvick, and it would be his last career win. How about that? Man, 844 Studio 4, you're listening to the Scoreboard. When we come back, we'll talk NBA and NHL playoffs. Don't go anywhere. We're back after this. everyone, we are back here on the Scoreboard, 844 Studio 4. In this final segment, we're going to talk a little bit about the NHL and the NBA. You know, we're very close to having time to get to the MLB again. Don't worry, the baseball season is still going strong. Yes, they're about 50 games in. Some of these teams getting right near 45-ish. We're almost 50 games in, which is time now to decide who is the real contender and who aren't the contenders in the MLB this year. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in the week as we move through the week 2 and into next week and into the summer. It's going to be a lot of baseball coverage. But right now, we have NHL and NBA playoff action going on. Tonight, Game 7 of a NHL game. The 2 greatest words in sports, Game 7. The only time that they're the 2 greatest words in sports is when it's attached to the NHL and overtime. Maybe that's not true, but it greatly increases the feeling you get watching those games. An overtime Game 7 in the NHL, especially when you have a rooting interest in the game, ooh, man, nothing like that kind of stress. Tonight, it's a couple of Canadian teams, so nobody really close to home. I don't even know if there's any Canadians in our listening audience. Maybe a couple, if I had to guess. But we have the Edmonton Oilers on the road taking on the Vancouver Canucks. Game time, 9 o'clock tonight on the networks of ESPN. On Wednesday, the third round, the conference finals, begin with the Florida Panthers on the road to face the New York Rangers in Madison Square Garden. Now, there is no schedule out yet for the Western Conference Finals, as we don't know who the Dallas Stars are going to be playing. But if I had to guess, that series would start on Thursday, then Saturday, Monday, basically all the days that the Rangers and Panthers are not playing. Now, there are a couple of days where they have 2 days of rest between days, and I'm sure they'll factor that in so that we get plenty of hockey every night. Edmonton Oilers, Vancouver Canucks later on tonight. Now, if you follow hockey, maybe you've heard the story of Brock Besser, the biggest news story of the day. Brock Besser for the Canucks will not be playing. He was a big part of this Vancouver Canucks team, unfortunately. Brock Besser has a blood clotting issue in his leg, so his season, even if they move on, his season is over. Now, I was listening to some NHL podcast about this earlier today, and they were saying back in the day, players would ask to sign waivers to stick around and still play, even with a blood clotting issue. I don't think they're going to do that anymore, but man, that's hockey right there. Maybe it's not an NFL story where you're cutting off your own finger at halftime of a Super Bowl, but that's still pretty good. The injuries that you hear, I think Carolina had Brett Pesce had a fractured leg and was still thinking about coming back. Like, he was close to returning. It's crazy what they play on in the NHL. What with an injury. I mean, definitely nothing crazy like a torn ACL or Achilles. But broken bones? Who cares? Get on your skates and get out there. In the NBA, we had a Game 7 yesterday between the Knicks and the Pacers. Also, the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. Man, those Minnesota Timberwolves are fun, and Anthony Edwards is a lot of fun to watch, and he is gaining fans more and more. Some of the things that he was doing after the game, just having fun. Like, he wasn't doing anything to antagonize others. He was just having fun, and he's a lot of fun to watch. They will be taking on the Dallas Mavericks in the Western Conference Finals. That series will begin on Wednesday. In the East, you have the Celtics, who have been resting and waiting to see who they're going to be playing. They'll be taking on the 6th seed, the Pacers, out of Indiana. The Knicks and the Pacers had a Game 7 on Sunday in Madison Square Garden. I watched this game. It was a Game 7. I don't know why you wouldn't want to watch this game. The Pacers, they shot outstanding in that game. They won 130-90. They shot over 70% from the floor. It was a single game playoff record. The Pacers could not miss, and there was nothing the Knicks could do about it. You know, sometimes when you're watching a basketball game and a team gets out to that 20-point lead early, Western Conference semifinals, how about what happened in that game? Sometimes when you see a team get out to that 20-point lead early, you think in the back of your head, this is going to come back. The other team isn't just going to lay over and let you win by 40. Even though we did have some 40-point blowouts in the playoffs, you know, it seems like it's either a close game or a complete blowout in the NBA nowadays. But that didn't happen for the Knicks. The Pacers stayed hot. And they got the win. 844-STUDIO-4, 844-788-3464. That is the phone number if you want to be part of the program. I don't know if the Celtics are going to get it done this year, but I have a feeling that this is their year. We've been talking about them a little bit over the past few days as the perennial underachiever of the 2020s. And even before that, as they have had the team to get it done for quite some time now, and they haven't been able to do it. Maybe this is the year, because the Mavericks, the Timberwolves, the Pacers, those are all young teams who are going this deep. Well, the Mavericks have been in the playoffs a few times, and we've had a little bit of heartbreak with them before, with Luka Doncic. Now they got Kyrie over there, and things seem to be all fine and dandy. But if I'm the Boston Celtics and I don't come away with the championship this year, if you're the management of that team, it might be time to blow it up. It might. Because that core isn't going to be able to do it if you can't do it this year. How many years have you had a chance? They lost recently. This has got to be the year for the Boston Celtics. If you have any final thoughts you'd like to put on the program, 844-788-3464. That is the phone number. As we begin to wrap things up here on the scoreboard today, just a reminder for you, Scottie Scheffler's arraignment has been moved to June 3rd. I don't know if these charges are going to get dropped or not, but I would assume that they would. Just because it's Scottie Scheffler. And I know, special treatment and all that. No, you don't give special treatment to anybody. Well, yeah, he's the number one golfer in the world. I doubt they're going to lock him up. I really do. And if they do lock him up, man, I'm wrong on that one. I'll take a pie to the face. If somebody comes to WSIC with a pie, I will take it in the face if somehow Scottie Scheffler ends up in jail or locked away, in prison, whatever they're going to put him in if he's found guilty at this point. I don't know. This day in sports history, there's some good things. On this day, Roger Clemens, baseball pitching legend, got his first career victory as he beat the Minnesota Twins 5-4. 1991, on this day, Michael Jordan was named the NBA's most valuable player. And in 2015, on this day, the NASCAR Hall of Fame inductees were announced as Bobby Isaac, Terry Labonte, and Jerry Cook. That is what happened on this day in sports history. Monitoring some of the comments here on the feed. Mark Ellis. Hey, Mark, listen, I agree. I agree with you. I talked about it earlier. Man, Stenhouse, let's get him in the ring. Have him hit the bag a couple times. Come on, we got to have a better first punch than that. It wasn't pretty. Thanks for tuning in tonight, everyone. I'm sure this story isn't going to go away with Ricky Stenhouse and Kyle Busch. I'll be here tomorrow, same time, same place. We'll chat some more. I'm sure there's going to be plenty to discuss as we have the fallout from the All-Star race, Game 7 in the NHL tonight, and more basketball playoffs coming up this weekend. Thanks for tuning in this wonderful Monday, everyone. Until tomorrow, have a good night, everyone.